Welcome back to the TDB 2K channel. To celebrate hitting 50,000 subscribers, we will take a look at The Rock's greatest moments of his career. And trust me, there are plenty of them throughout the entire video. Back in November 17th, 1996, who would have known that a young Rocky Maivia would go on to become the biggest superstar in WWE history and has continued to electrify millions around the world. Now I went through The Rock's entire career and picked out what I believe to be his best work within the confines of professional wrestling. Some of these moments might hit you with a wave of nostalgia, and for more casual fans of WWE, you will learn how Dwayne Johnson became The Rock. Let's start where it all began. November 17th, 1996 at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. Dwayne Johnson was born into the Hawaii Samoan family. His father, Rocky Johnson, is one of the greatest black pioneers in professional wrestling, becoming the first black tag team champion alongside Tony Atlas. He would go on to marry Dwayne Johnson's mother, who was the daughter of the legendary High Chief Peter Maivia, making him a part of the bloodline. In 1972, Rocky and Ada Johnson would give birth to the final boss, Dwayne Johnson, who would go on to follow in his father's footsteps, which takes us to his debut at the 1996 Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden, where he would pick up the win and get a good reaction from the crowd. After The Rock's debut, he was pushed towards a potential Intercontinental Championship match. That specific belt was around the waist of Hunter Hearst Helmsley. The two men would eventually be matched up at WWF Raw on February 13, 1997. The Rock would capture his first ever title belt in the WWF, defeating Triple H. Despite being labeled as a promising young talent, the fans didn't embrace him as the traditional babyface he was intended to be.
There was an incredible shift that was happening. Here I was, this guy who was happy to be there even when I lost. That drove fans crazy because that's bull.
Soon into his first run as Intercontinental Champion, the fans started chanting "Rocky sucks" every time Rocky Maivia would appear. Around that time, the WWF was slowly shifting to the Attitude Era, where heels like Stone Cold Steve Austin were being cheered for, opposed to the traditional babyface. After being booed out of the arena in his first WrestleMania 13, The Rock knew he had to do something different, because the smiling good guy gimmick wasn't being received well. This brings us to when Rocky Maivia officially became The Rock. After being injured, he received a call from Jim Ross that asked him if he would like to be part of the Nation of Domination faction and turn heel. The Rock immediately said yes, and would go on to cut his most important promo of his career. He told the fans that The Rock is many things, but one thing he's not is suck. He cited that the fans turned against him, saying, "Die Rocky die," which ultimately led him to join the Nation of Domination and demanded to be referred to as The Rock. This was The Rock's Austin 316 moment. The Rock joining the Nation of Domination allowed him to be more authentic. With a newfound confidence within himself, being a part of a faction wasn't enough. After WrestleMania 14, The Rock would declare himself as the new leader of the Nation of Domination after giving Farouk, who was the leader of the faction, a rock bottom. The Rock would enter a short feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin after challenging Stone Cold for his Intercontinental title. Since Stone Cold Steve Austin was on track towards capturing the WWF title, he just handed over his Intercontinental belt over to The Rock on an episode of Raw, making The Rock the Intercontinental Champion for the second time in his career. The fans started getting behind The Rock because of his new entertaining persona. Despite Stone Cold Steve Austin moving on from The Rock to go on to the main event scene, the two would meet again later on, as you will see in this video. Around the same time as The Rock becoming the new leader of the Nation of Domination, Triple H became the new leader of Generation X, and both men would compete against each other to establish their faction as #1 in the WWF. Triple H would become The Rock's biggest rival in the WWF at the time, as the two men would fight over becoming the next top guy in the company. Their first feud would come to an end in a ladder match at 1977 SummerSlam in front of a sellout crowd in Madison Square Garden to determine the new Intercontinental Champion. One of the best matches of that year. It was one of the most violent matches back then. Both men decided to use the ladder as a weapon to inflict as much damage onto each other as possible. Triple H was ultimately booked to go over and win the Intercontinental belt since The Rock was being pushed towards the main event picture. Despite Triple H ending their initial feud picking up the win in the ladder match, it was a classic match that isn't talked about enough that helped propel both superstars into the main event scene, and one of the rare times we would see The Rock in that specific match type. The Rock was so over with the fans that plans were put into place for him to become a contender for the WWF title. However, The Rock decided that he no longer needed the Nation of Domination and would leave the faction to die. The Rock would go on to win his first WWF title at the 1988 Survivor Series pay-per-view, a full 2 years after his WWF debut. It cannot be overlooked how important his run with the Nation of Domination and the Intercontinental Championship was towards making The Rock become one of the top superstars in professional wrestling, a truly underrated part of his career. By 1998, The Rock was a fan favorite due to his promos, catchphrases, and entertaining matches. The fans were buying tickets just to watch the Great One perform. The WWE had the chance to make him the company's top babyface, but instead they chose to turn him into the corporate champion and make him a heel at the 1998 Survivor Series pay-per-view. After The Rock chose to align himself with Vince McMahon and sell out, he was named the corporate champion and would enter an entertaining rivalry with future tag team partner Mick Foley, the very same man Vince McMahon screwed over to make The Rock leave as WWF champion. After losing the WWF title to Mankind on one of the most viewed moments on Monday Night Raw in the build-up to the 1999 Royal Rumble, The Rock would face Mankind in the most brutal match of the Attitude Era, a I Quit match at the 1999 Royal Rumble to win back his WWF title. The Rock would hit Mankind with unprotected chair shots and left the 1999 Royal Rumble standing over Mankind's unresponsive body as WWF champion. The Rock had business to take care of against Stone Cold Steve Austin in his first WrestleMania main event at WrestleMania 15. It was for the WWF title, and Vince McMahon was doing everything in his power to make sure that Stone Cold Steve Austin wouldn't leave that night as WWF champion. Commissioner Shawn Michaels made it clear that the corporation were banned from ringside, making the main event a fair one-on-one even matchup. Both men started the match by trading blows, then the action went all the way outside to the WrestleMania 15 stage. But when the match returned to the ring, two referees got taken out. Vince McMahon tried to screw over Stone Cold Steve Austin, but then Mick Foley shows up in the ref attire. And after Stone Cold Steve Austin lands a stunner, he pins The Rock to win the WWF belt. You might be wondering, why is this a part of The Rock's greatest moments? Well, it's simply because it was The Rock's first main event on the grandest stage of them all, and the beginning of The Rock vs. Austin trilogy at WrestleMania. On the April 26, 1999 episode of Monday Night Raw, The Rock gets fired from the corporation after they beat his ass, making him revert back into a babyface. From late 1999 to 2002, The Rock would have some of his best moments of his career as a face. He would leave for Hollywood in 2002, but would return as Hollywood Rock as a heel the following year. After 2003, he would no longer be an active part of the roster due to his Hollywood career, but would return in 2004 as a face for a one-off tag team match at WrestleMania 20 with Mick Foley versus members of Evolution. It would be 7 long years before The Rock came back home, and ever since then, he has gave the WWE Universe moments we will never forget. Let's take a look at some of these moments. The Rock entered Judgment Day 2000 as the defending WWF Champion. The Brahma Bull ended Triple H's title reign 1 month earlier at Backlash. For this grudge match, the Game had issued a challenge to The Rock, a 60-minute Iron Man match. Another addition to the matchup was the insertion of Triple H's former DX stablemate, Shawn Michaels, as the special guest referee. The Rock earned the first fall with a rock bottom, but the Game would ultimately take control of the contest, leading by 2 clear falls at 3-1, then 5-3. In the final moments, the People's Champion managed to wrestle his way back into the matchup, and with just a few minutes left on the clock, leveled the bout, 5 equal falls, following a People's Elbow that led Triple H's corporate and DX allies interfering to beat The Rock's ass. The brawl caused referee Shawn Michaels to be knocked off the apron. Then everyone turned to the ramp. The Dead Man debuted his American Badass gimmick and rode down to the ring on a motorcycle and picked off the heels one by one. Shawn Michaels came round at precisely the moment the American Badass nailed the Game with a tombstone. As the timer ran out, Shawn Michaels disqualified The Rock and awarded the final fall to Triple H, making the score 6-5 falls in Triple H's favor, and Triple H left Judgment Day as the new WWF Champion. Despite the botched finish, this is the definitive Rock vs Triple H match, and also an underrated classic. The Rock and Kurt Angle had great chemistry inside of the ring as well as in backstage promos. Both men are 2 of my all-time favorites of that era of wrestling, and I truly believe that the last few years of the Attitude Era and the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression Era wouldn't have been as good as it was without both men being top superstars in the company. In 2001, Kurt Angle established himself in the main event picture. By the time 2001 WWF No Way Out, Kurt Angle had already held the WWF title for the last 5 months. The Olympic gold medalist proved that he could beat anyone on the roster, but The Rock believed that Kurt Angle's days of being a champion were coming to an end. The Rock had an unhealthy obsession with becoming the WWF champion again, and Kurt Angle was the man who had what The Rock wanted. But most importantly, The Rock wanted to be in the main event of WrestleMania for the 3rd straight year. Kurt Angle believed The Rock was jealous of him ever since he stepped foot in the WWF. Both guys got to settle it all in an all-time classic at the WWF No Way Out pay-per-view in 2001, with The Rock winning the WWF title and going on to main event WrestleMania 17. This wouldn't be the last time both Kurt and The Rock would face off in the ring, but I believe it is their best one-on-one match against each other, and it was pivotal to the build-up towards WrestleMania 17. The greatest era of wrestling history as we knew it ended on April 1st, 2001 at WrestleMania 17, when The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, 2 of the biggest stars in pro wrestling history, ran it back in the 2nd of their trilogy of WrestleMania main events in front of 67,925 fans in the Houston Astrodome. The Rock entered as the WWF Champion after defeating Kurt Angle at the 2001 No Way Out pay-per-view, while Stone Cold Steve Austin arrived as the 2001 Royal Rumble winner. This was the biggest match of all time at the time, since The Rock was just as big of a star as Stone Cold Steve Austin. The promo package perfectly hypes up this match, with Limp Bizkit's My Way playing in the background as The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin trade blows and finishers. Together, they put on an instant classic. The match had dramatic near falls, violence, and an unforgettable ending involving Stone Cold Steve Austin's heel turn and alliance with Vince McMahon. In my opinion, this is The Rock's greatest match of his career. This match put The Rock on the same tier as Stone Cold Steve Austin as the biggest superstar in the company in 2001. Hulk Hogan was the biggest wrestling superstar in the 80s, who reinvented himself in the 90s when he joined the NWO in WCW, whilst The Rock was the biggest star in the WWE alongside Stone Cold Steve Austin in the late 90s to early 2000s. At WrestleMania 18 in Toronto, they faced off in a match dubbed Icon vs. Icon. It was the passing of the torch, as Hulk Hogan's career was slowly winding down and The Rock had taken professional wrestling to its highest point. The fans inside the Sky Dome were hit with a wave of nostalgia, chanting for the Hulkster, who went into the match as a heel as Hulkamania ran wild. Despite The Rock being a babyface, he was getting booed, while Hulk Hogan, the heel, was making the Hulkamaniacs run wild. So both men fed into the crowd's reaction. The Rock carried the match, working with Hulk Hogan's physical limitations. I've never seen the arena erupt like it did when Hulk Hogan started hulking up. But after the last rock bottom, The Rock put an end to any chance of Hulk Hogan getting an upset win. A true passing of the torch moment that saw Hogan make The Rock the top guy in the WWE in 2002. It remains the most significant match of The Rock's career. At the Vengeance 2002 pay-per-view, The Rock would be involved in a triple threat match with Kurt Angle and The Undertaker to determine who would walk away with the WWE Undisputed Championship, which was held by Big Evil himself. The Rock got involved in Undertaker's title match against Triple H at the 2002 King of the Ring pay-per-view, almost costing Taker the WWE Undisputed Championship, not before defending his belt in a controversial title match against Kurt Angle, where he tapped at the same time Kurt Angle got pinned, retaining his title belt. Vince McMahon decided to add Kurt Angle to the Vengeance match, making it a triple threat match for the WWE Undisputed Championship. And it was the perfect example on how to have a great triple threat match. Each guy got their moments in, and the match is very entertaining from start to finish. Definitely one of the greatest triple threat matches in company history. They were stealing each other's finishes, and there were a ton of near falls, but ultimately The Rock would leave the match as the new WWE Undisputed Champion, and would continue to have his last title run as a full-time active member of the WWE roster, before taking a break from the WWE after dropping the title at SummerSlam 2002 to Brock Lesnar and turning heel at the end of the pay-per-view. When The Rock returned on the February 20th, 2003 episode of SmackDown, he said that the fans turned their back on the Great One, and now The Rock is no longer the People's Champion. This more cocky and dismissive persona of The Rock believed that since he went to Hollywood, he is above the WWE, and this dubbed Hollywood Rock would beat Hulk Hogan in a rematch from their WrestleMania 18 match at the 2003 WWE No Way Out pay-per-view. At the same pay-per-view, Stone Cold Steve Austin was brought back to the company to face Eric Bischoff after leaving the WWE on bad terms in 2002. The Rock quickly set his sights on Stone Cold Steve Austin and challenged the Texas Rattlesnake to one final match at WrestleMania. In the build-up to the match, The Rock would hold his very own rock concert on WWE Raw, but would be ambushed by the Texas Rattlesnake, with the segment ending with Stone Cold destroying The Rock's Willie Nelson signed guitar. Before WrestleMania 19, The Rock was 0-2 against Stone Cold at Mania, and whilst he had accomplished everything there was to do in the WWE, one thing he was yet to accomplish was beating Stone Cold's ass at WrestleMania. His pre-match promo with Jonathan Coachman was arguably the best of his career. Citing his experience in Hollywood, he said, "Act 1 and Act 2, they don't matter. The only thing that matters, everyone remembers, Act 3. Finally." The Rock entered WrestleMania 19 with one objective: whoop Stone Cold Steve Austin's bald candy ass. In what would be Austin's final match before his return at WrestleMania 38 2 decades later, The Rock finally beat him after delivering 3 rock bottoms to put the Texas Rattlesnake away. After the bell, he shared a moment with his greatest rival that broke kayfabe, expressing his gratitude to Austin for help making him one of the biggest stars in entertainment. The Rock sent shockwaves throughout the wrestling community on the February 14, 2011 episode of Monday Night Raw. He electrified as only he could, enjoying the gratitude of the people, before turning his attention to John Cena. A public exchange of words motivated The Rock to insult the company's top babyface and set up the much anticipated match the following year. The electricity in the arena that night reiterated that no matter how long The Rock had been gone, he will always be the people's champion, and finally, he was back home where he belongs. WWE spent an entire year building up the dream match between The Rock and John Cena at WrestleMania 28 in Miami. It was the biggest match in WWE history. He went one-on-one with John Cena, who was in his prime, and looked better than ever despite being at his biggest physically and much older than when he wrestled full-time. The electricity in the arena came together to create an unforgettable night in Miami. Despite the misleading tagline, once in a lifetime, since the match would be ran back in the following year's WrestleMania, we might never see something as special as that build to a WrestleMania main event as The Rock vs. John Cena at WrestleMania 28. Finally, that brings us to the current version of The Rock, the final boss. Who knows where The Rock will take us, but regardless of how the story unfolds, The Rock's latest run as the final boss is up there with his greatest work. The Rock returned as himself, like he had been doing for the last couple of years, and stole Cody Rhodes' main event from him in hopes of making the biggest WrestleMania main event with his cousin Roman Reigns. However, the overwhelming support for Cody Rhodes to finish his story and the fans giving The Rock PTSD with Rocky Sucks chants gave The Rock no choice but to give the people what they wanted. So The Rock created this new gimmick, which is if Corporate Rock and Hollywood Rock had a baby with Black Adam and gave birth to the final boss. Not only has The Rock saved WrestleMania 40, he has made professional wrestling cool again. There are so many layers to this current version of The Rock. The fact that his entrance has been updated to have the Hollywood Rock theme and has a Black Adam feel to it. The Rock beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes in a parking lot attack and wiping the American Nightmare's blood on his weightlifting belt in the rain on the March 25th, 2024 episode of Monday Night Raw has to be The Rock's best moment of his career in the last decade. Not only was it the best of The Rock's career, the entire segment was the best thing the WWE has ever produced in the last decade. It was peak cinema. But that will do it for The Rock's greatest moments. Of course, there are a dozen more moments that could have been included. So, if you have any of The Rock's greatest moments that you would include, leave them in the comments. Thank you for watching, and take care.